Welcome to the Explainer. When you think about it, who actually gets to make the rules on the world stage? For the longest time, the answer was pretty simple. But today, the cast of characters who decide on war, peace, and human rights has totally exploded. And you might be surprised to find out that, yeah, you actually have a role to play.
So let's start with that big question. Who makes the rules? It sounds simple enough, right? But the answer has been completely rewritten over the last 100 years or so. And that change, it affects literally everything, from the phone in your pocket to your most basic, fundamental rights.
For centuries, and I mean centuries, the answer was just one word: states. Nations, empires, kingdoms, whatever you wanted to call them, they were the only ones that mattered. Everybody else, we were all just pawns on their giant global chessboard.
But then the 20th century happened. With its world wars and massive global challenges, it just completely tore up the old script. The old model, where only states had a voice, it just wasn't going to cut it anymore in our super interconnected world.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this now crowded stage, we've got to first define what it even means to be an actor in this whole global drama. What does it actually take to get a speaking part?
Well, the fancy legal term for having a speaking part is called international legal personality. And really, it just boils down to two things: having rights, like being able to sign a treaty, and having duties, like being held accountable if you break the rules. It's the huge difference between being a player in the game versus just being a piece on the board.
For a very long time, the guest list for this exclusive club was, well, it was incredibly short. It wasn't just tough to get in. For pretty much everyone else, it was flat out impossible.
States were the undisputed headliners. They were the original and, for a long time, the only subjects of international law. That meant they had what's called full legal personality. Think of it like being the owner of the club. They got to make all the rules, sign the big deals, and they were the ones responsible for everything that happened. But then, everything changed. I mean, dramatically. The old system got pushed to its limits, and a bunch of new players started demanding a role. The stage was about to get way, way more interesting.
The end of World War II was really the moment that blew the whole old system wide open. And it happened fast. In just 4 years, the world was remade. You have the UN being born in 1945, creating this totally new kind of global entity. Then in 48, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights gives individuals like us a voice for the very first time. And then, bam! By 1949, a court ruling confirms that the UN itself has legal standing. The floodgates were officially open.
And first to step into that new spotlight were these huge, powerful new entities, international organizations. We're talking about the giants, the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the International Labor Organization. States actually created them to deal with specific global problems, but in doing that, they kind of gave them a life of their own, with their own rights and their own responsibilities under international law. And this is where it gets really personal. Because the next actor to take the stage was, well, it was you and me, individual human beings. Honestly, this was a revolutionary shift. For the very first time, international law looked past borders, looked past governments, and said that you, as a person, have rights that no state can just take away. But it was a two-way street, because with those rights came responsibilities. Now, individuals could be held personally accountable for the absolute worst crimes imaginable, like genocide and war crime. This is where you can really see the change. The very existence of the International Criminal Court means that powerful people, we're talking presidents, generals, warlords, they can't just hide behind their country's flag anymore. They can be held personally responsible for what they do on the world stage. So now you've got states, organizations, and individuals all on the stage, all trying to get a word in. And this, of course, kicked off a huge debate among legal experts. Who really counts? Who are the actual true subjects of international law? So two main camps basically formed. On one side, you had the old-school Realist theory. They argued that, look, power is all that matters, and only states have real power. Armies, economies, all that. But on the other side, you had the Fictional Theory, which argued that a state is just an idea, a fiction. The only real things are the people inside it, so they must be the true subjects of the law. Let's be honest. The state-only view was clearly out of date, but the individual-only view kind of ignored the massive power that states still have. So what everyone needed was a more practical approach, one that actually reflected the world as it is. And that brings us to what's called the functional theory, which is pretty much the consensus view today. And it's just pragmatic. It says, okay, yes, states are still the main actors for sure, but it also recognizes that individuals and international organizations have their own unique roles or functions to play. It doesn't try to give one single answer for everything. It just asks, hey, what does this actor actually do? And then it assigns rights and duties that fit that role. So, after all that upheaval, all that debate and evolution, what does the cast list for international law actually look like right now, today? So here it is. This is what the modern stage looks like. States are still the headliners, no doubt, with the most power. But they are not alone anymore, not by a long shot. They now have to share that stage with a whole cast of supporting actors, from global organizations all the way down to individuals, and each one has a specific, limited, but absolutely crucial role to play. That simple monologue from the past, it's become a complex and, yeah, often messy global conversation.
The story of international law is really a story of an ever-expanding stage. And you know what? That evolution is not over. As we face down these massive new challenges, things like climate change, tech companies that are more powerful than some countries, and even artificial intelligence, it leaves us with one heck of a question. Who, or maybe even what, is going to be the next actor to step into the spotlight?